The mail usually brought bills, junk flyers, maybe a postcard from a friend enjoying retirement somewhere sunny, mundane, predictable. That's how I liked my life these days, quiet and ordered, a stark contrast to the emotional tempests of raising a family. My son, Mark, and his wife, Chloe, lived nearby. They visited, brought the grandkids sometimes, though less often now the kids were teenagers. There was a distance, a coolness that hadn't always been there, but I chalked it up to the busyness of their lives, the inevitable drift between generations. Until the envelope arrived. It wasn't junk mail, it was thick, official looking, from a life insurance company I didn't recognize. Curiosity piqued, I slid it open. Inside were documents detailing a substantial life insurance policy. My name was listed as the insured. The beneficiary? My son, Mark. The policy amount made my breath catch, far more than needed for funeral expenses, enough to change someone's life significantly. My life insurance, taken out by my son. A cold tendril of unease snaked around my heart. Why hadn't he mentioned this? We weren't the kind of family that kept secrets, or so I thought. Maybe it was a surprise, a misguided attempt at responsible planning, but the amount, it felt excessive, almost predatory. I tucked the papers away, the unease settling deep in my gut, a discordant note in the quiet symphony of my life. That night, Mark called. His voice was unusually solicitous, asking about my health, reminding me to be careful on the stairs. It was the kind of call a loving son might make, but overlaid with the knowledge of that policy, it sounded rehearsed, calculated. The casual, love you, Mom, at the end felt like a counterfeit coin, shiny on the surface, but cold and worthless underneath. A shadow had fallen, and I had a sickening feeling it stretched much further than I could yet see. What else was hidden beneath their sudden attentiveness? The discovery of the policy shifted something fundamental within me. The lens through which I viewed Mark and Chloe became sharper, colder. Their visits increased, laden with forced smiles and overly sweet inquiries about my well-being. Chloe, who usually barely acknowledged my existence beyond polite greetings, started bringing over casseroles, always suspiciously bland, and fussing over imaginary dust on my furniture. Mark would hover, steering conversations towards my finances, my will, my future plans. It was all cloaked in concern, but the fabric was thin, revealing the greed beneath. One afternoon, Chloe insisted on rearranging my living room furniture. To make it safer for you, Eleanor, she chirped, her eyes darting around the room. Later that day, I nearly tripped over the edge of the rug she'd inexplicably moved slightly, right at the top of the basement stairs. My heart hammered against my ribs. Coincidence? Perhaps. But it felt like a rehearsal. Another time, Mark offered to fix a faulty light switch in the bathroom. I declined, saying I'd call an electrician. He seemed oddly insistent, almost annoyed. I checked the switch later. It worked perfectly fine. The near miss with the rug, the insistence on the light switch, they were small things, easily dismissed individually. But woven together with the secret insurance policy, they formed a chilling pattern. They weren't just waiting for me to die, they seemed impatient. One evening, while they thought I was napping upstairs, I overheard snippets of their conversation drifting up from the kitchen. Policy active, needs to look natural. The upcoming trip. My blood ran cold. A trip? They hadn't mentioned any trip. The pieces clicked into place with horrifying clarity. They weren't just hoping for my demise, they were actively planning it. The whispers confirmed my deepest fear. My own son and his wife saw me not as a mother, but as a payout. The betrayal was a physical ache, sharp and deep. But beneath the pain, a different feeling began to stir, a cold, hard resolve. They thought I was a frail old woman, easily manipulated, easily disposed of. They were about to find out how wrong they were. The confirmation of their plan didn't break me. It forged something new within me, something steely and sharp. The hurt was immense, a gaping wound where maternal love used to reside. But grief wouldn't save me. Anger wouldn't either, not yet. What I needed was clarity, strategy, They saw me as a pawn in their greedy game. It was time to show them I was the player. Confronting them directly was out of the question. They would deny everything, paint me as paranoid, perhaps even try to have me declared incompetent. No, I had to play their game, but by my rules. My mind started working, sifting through possibilities. The insurance policy was the key. They needed my death to look like an accident to collect. And they mentioned a trip. That must be the intended stage for their final act. Fine, if they wanted a performance, I would give them one, but the script would be mine. The first step was to lull them into a false sense of security, make them believe their manipulation was working. I needed them to think I was oblivious, perhaps even softening towards their sudden displays of affection. The idea began to form, elegant in its simplicity. I would pretend to fall into their trap regarding my assets. I had a modest portfolio, some savings, the house, things Mark had been subtly inquiring about for months. What if I hinted at transferring some of it to them before this mysterious trip? A gesture of trust, of motherly love, perhaps even a sign of my own declining faculties in their eyes. It would be the perfect bait, making them even more confident, more eager to proceed with their plan, believing their inheritance was secured and the insurance payout was imminent. I started researching lawyers specializing in estate planning, but not for the reasons Mark and Chloe would assume. I needed ironclad documentation, loopholes they wouldn't see, protections woven into the very fabric of the trust I would pretend to place in them. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about reclaiming my life, my dignity, from those who sought to steal both. The first move on my chessboard was about to be made. I called Mark, my voice deliberately frail. "Mark, dear? I've been thinking about the future, about simplifying things." The phone call worked exactly as I'd hoped. Mark's voice, usually tinged with impatience, became instantly warmer, dripping with false concern. "Mom, whatever you need, Chloe and I are here for you." The bait was taken. Over the next few weeks, I played the part of a loving, slightly confused mother considering her legacy. I allowed Mark to help me sort through financial papers, feigning difficulty understanding complex clauses, letting him guide my hand, metaphorically speaking. Chloe was ever present, bringing over baked goods I never ate, dusting surfaces that were already clean, her eyes constantly assessing, calculating. They were like vultures circling, patient but eager. I met with a lawyer, my real lawyer, Sarah, a sharp woman I'd known for years, recommended by a trusted friend. I explained the situation, the insurance policy, my suspicions, my counterplan. Sarah listened intently, her expression shifting from shock to grim determination. Together, we drafted documents that looked like a straightforward transfer of certain assets into a trust managed by Mark, but were riddled with clauses only a meticulous legal eye would catch, clauses that rendered the transfer conditional, revocable under specific circumstances, and, crucially, worthless until after my natural death, verified by specific medical protocols. We documented everything: the discovery of the policy, the overheard conversations, the near-miss incidents. I even installed discreet recording devices in my living room. Let them think they were weaving a trap for me. I was weaving a web for them. I signed the papers Mark presented with his lawyer present, making sure to appear slightly overwhelmed, leaning on Mark for support. He patted my hand, a smug little smile playing on his lips. "It's all taken care of, Mom. You don't have to worry about a thing." Oh, I wasn't worried, Mark. Not anymore. The trap was set. All that remained was for them to spring it. And just as I predicted, a few days later, Chloe called, her voice bright and bubbly. "Eleanor, Mark and I were thinking, the weather is going to be gorgeous next weekend. How about we take you on a lovely picnic? Somewhere scenic, by the old quarry lake?" The quarry lake? Notorious for its steep, crumbling edges, the stage was chosen. "A picnic? How lovely," I responded, injecting just the right amount of pleased surprise into my voice. Inside, my heart beat a steady, determined rhythm. The quarry lake, of course. Isolated, picturesque, and dangerously precarious. Perfect for an unfortunate accident. Their lack of subtlety was almost insulting. The week leading up to the picnic was a masterclass in deception. I continued my role as the slightly frail, trusting mother, expressing excitement about the outing. I packed a small bag, letting Chloe help me choose an outfit. "Something comfortable, Mom," she'd advised, her eyes lingering perhaps a little too long on my sturdy walking shoes. Did she hope I'd wear something less practical, something that might make me lose my footing more easily? Meanwhile, my own preparations continued in secret. I finalized everything with Sarah, ensuring copies of all documentation, including the recordings, were securely stored off-site and with instructions to release them to the authorities if anything happened to me. I also made a quiet call to an old friend, David, a retired police detective I'd known since childhood. I didn't give him specifics, just asked him to be in the vicinity of the quarry lake around lunchtime on Saturday, perhaps enjoying some bird watching, and to keep his phone on. Just a precaution. He didn't pry, just agreed, his voice calm and reassuring. Knowing David would be nearby, unseen but aware, was an anchor in the churning sea of my plan. The night before the picnic, I sat by my window, looking out at the quiet street. The betrayal still ached, a phantom limb of lost affection. Was there any part of the sun I raised left in Mark? Any flicker of conscience behind Chloe's avarice? I doubted it. They had made their choice. Now I had to follow through with mine. There was no turning back. Tomorrow, they expected me to stumble. They expected me to fall. They expected me to disappear quietly from their lives, leaving only a windfall behind. Tomorrow, they would learn that underestimated women are often the most dangerous. The calm I felt wasn't resignation, it was readiness. The storm was coming, and I intended to be the one left standing when it passed. The Saturday of the picnic dawned bright and clear, almost offensively cheerful. Mark and Chloe arrived, radiating forced bonhomie. The drive to the quarry lake was filled with their strained chatter about the weather, the scenery, anything but the tension humming beneath the surface. I played along, offering placid smiles and non-committal responses, my own nerves tightly coiled but hidden. The spot they chose was predictable. Near the edge, with a stunning view and a treacherous drop just a few feet away, partially obscured by loose gravel and uneven ground. They spread out the blanket, unpacked the food. The bland casserole reappeared, along with sandwiches I wouldn't touch. They kept urging me closer to the edge. "Look at the view, Mom. Isn't it breathtaking?" Mark said, gesturing expansively, his hand hovering near my back. Chloe chimed in, "Why don't you sit right here, Eleanor? It's the best spot." They exchanged glances, a silent, ugly understanding passing between them. This was it. The moment felt suspended, unreal. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. "Actually," I said, my voice clear and steady, cutting through their saccharine performance, "I think we need to talk about something else first." They froze, their smiles faltering. "Talk about what, Mom?" Mark asked, trying to maintain the facade, but a flicker of panic crossed his eyes. I looked directly at him, then at Chloe. "About the life insurance policy, Mark. The very large one you took out on me without my knowledge." Silence. Thick, suffocating silence. Chloe paled visibly. Mark stammered, "Mom, it was just planning for the future." "Planning?" I echoed, my voice hardening. "Planning my accident? Like the rug incident? Or perhaps something involving that faulty light switch? Or maybe a little push right here, today?" I gestured towards the cliff edge, their faces crumpled, masks falling away to reveal raw greed and fear. How did you know?" Chloe whispered, aghast. "You weren't exactly subtle," I replied coldly, "and you underestimated me. You thought I was just a foolish old woman you could manipulate and discard." I saw Mark's eyes dart around, assessing escape routes, perhaps considering brute force. Before he could move, I delivered the final blow. By the way, I said, my voice dangerously calm, those assets I so generously signed over? The trust documents? My lawyer, Sarah, made sure they're effectively worthless to you unless I die of certified natural causes. And every conversation, every threat, every near miss, it's all documented. Recorded? Mark lunged, not towards me, but towards the picnic basket, perhaps to destroy any evidence he thought might be there. But it was too late. Their plan, so carefully constructed in their minds, had shattered around them. They were trapped, exposed, their ugliness laid bare under the bright, unforgiving sun. The aftermath at the quarry lake was swift and decisive. As Mark scrambled frantically, Chloe simply stood, frozen, the color drained from her face. Before Mark could do anything truly desperate, a car pulled up the service road, my friend, David. He didn't approach immediately, just observed, a silent, authoritative presence that instantly quelled any further aggression from Mark. "It's over, Mark," I said, my voice devoid of the tremor I felt inside. "Everything is documented. Sarah has copies. David is here. There's no escaping this." Mark slumped, defeated, the fight draining out of him, replaced by a sullen resentment. Chloe started to weep, not tears of remorse, but of self-pity. The drive back was silent, the air thick with unspoken accusations and the stench of their failed plot. I didn't press charges immediately. The evidence I held, the recordings, the documentation of the insurance policy taken out under suspicious circumstances, the near misses, Sarah's testimony, David's presence as a witness to their state at the quarry, was leverage. I met with Mark and Chloe, my lawyer present. I laid out my terms. They would relinquish any claim as beneficiaries on the insurance policy immediately. They would sign documents legally dissolving the sham trust, acknowledging the conditions under which it was created. They would agree to have no contact with me ever again, and they would get out of my life. The alternative? I would release everything to the police and the insurance company. Fraud, conspiracy, possibly attempted murder, they would face serious prison time. Faced with ruin and incarceration, they crumbled. They signed everything Sarah put in front of them, their hands trembling. Watching them, I felt a profound sadness, not for them, but for the relationship that had died, murdered by their greed. There was no satisfaction in their downfall, only a grim sense of necessity. They left my lawyer's office like ghosts, stripped of their entitlement, their future uncertain. The legal ties were severed, the threat was neutralized. But the emotional scar remained, a permanent reminder of how deeply family could betray. The finality of it settled over me, heavy but clean. The chapter involving Mark and Chloe was closed, violently and irrevocably. Severing ties with my only son was like amputating a part of myself. There was pain, yes, and a lingering phantom ache where love used to be. But there was also relief, a lightness I hadn't realized I was missing. The shadow that had loomed over me for months finally lifted. The house felt different, quieter, perhaps, but also entirely mine, free from the suffocating weight of pretense and hidden agendas. I didn't stay in that house for long, though. It held too many memories, tainted by the final act of betrayal. I sold it, using the proceeds not to hoard, but to live. I traveled, not to escape, but to explore. Places I'd only dreamed of seeing, cultures I'd only read about. I reconnected with old friends, made new ones, people who valued me for who I was, not for what I had. And yes, eventually, I met someone, Arthur. A kind, witty man with laugh lines around his eyes and a genuine warmth that thawed the last vestiges of ice around my heart. He wasn't looking for a caretaker or an inheritance. He was looking for a companion, an equal. We shared stories, laughter, quiet evenings, and the comfortable silence of mutual respect. He knew about Mark and Chloe, not the sordid details, but the fact of the estrangement, the deep wound it had left. He never pried, just offered quiet support. Looking back, the ordeal was horrific, a violation of the most sacred trust. But it was also a crucible. It forced me to confront my own strength, a resilience I never knew I possessed. Mark and Chloe had tried to steal my future, my life, for a monetary inheritance. What they didn't realize was that the true inheritance wasn't money or property. It was the wisdom gained, the self-worth reclaimed, the courage discovered in the face of profound betrayal. I had faced the darkness in my own family and walked away, not unscathed, but whole. Standing on a balcony overlooking a Tuscan vineyard, Arthur's hand resting gently on mine, I finally understood. My life wasn't ending. It was finally, truly beginning. I had survived their deadly plan, and in doing so, I had inherited myself. And that was the richest reward of all. Eleanor's journey reminds us that strength often lies dormant, waiting for the moment it's needed most. She turned profound betrayal into a catalyst for reclaiming her life, proving that resilience can bloom even in the darkest of circumstances. What do you think is the hardest part about setting boundaries with family, especially when trust has been broken so severely? Share your thoughts in the comments below. We love hearing your perspectives. If you were moved by Eleanor's story, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to Revenge with Emma for more compelling stories of resilience and justice.